Hello everyone, and welcome to today's SIA webinar. Today's discussion is on making safety personal. We are pleased to welcome our presenters for today, Alex Paisley and Gary Hodge. This webinar is live and interactive, and you're encouraged to post questions to the presenters throughout the presentation. Now, if you are experiencing any technical issues during the webinar, please dial our support team on 1-800-733-416. This number is also listed in the chat box. I'd now like to pass you over to Alex to begin.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone. It's either a good morning if you happen to be in WA. It's likely to be a good afternoon if you're virtually anywhere else. So yeah, I'm sitting in Perth at the moment. Joining me today is Gary Hodge, who's not sitting next to me, but is somewhere in the beautiful countryside. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. It's appropriate to say a big thank you to SIA for giving Gary and myself this opportunity. So on behalf of the Pacific Institute, we're very grateful to SIA and to Redback for their technical support, always very helpful. So I hope you can all hear me loud and clear, and I'll just hand over to Gary very quickly to say hello, and then we'll take you through the agenda and to what we hope is going to be an interactive session. Over to you, Gary.
Thanks very much, Alex, and I'd like to echo Alex's thoughts and welcome, and it's great to have this opportunity to be able to have a chat with you today. It is going to be very interactive, so if you wouldn't mind having a couple of pieces of paper and a pencil or a pen just handy, just so that you can participate in some of the activities as we move through. Thanks very much, Alex. Over to you.
Terrific. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, but what we're going to be doing, just to give you an idea of this practical interactive session, here's the overview. We've got an hour together. Incidentally, folks, please post your questions. We had a session about 2 weeks ago on belief-based safety leadership, which went very well and was very interactive. So please feel free to post your comments and questions. Gary and I will be constantly looking at that. Whilst I'm talking, Gary will be looking, and vice versa, and we'll certainly try and answer as many of those as we practically can. So yeah, we'll very briefly be giving you an introduction to the Pacific Institute, to this concept of balance in life and well-being. We'll be talking about what we mean by making safety personal. We'll be talking about beliefs and perceptions and assumptions that the mind makes, which determines what we see, and the implications of that for safety. We'll be looking at the importance of self-image and personal and team performance. And at the end, if we've got a few minutes spare, we'll entertain any other questions or comments. So that's really where we're going, folks. Let's get into it, and hope you all enjoy the session. Very briefly, who the Pacific Institute is. This slide is quite self-explanatory. We're global. We're experts in growing culture in particular. Our focus is very much on how the mind works and on mindset. And you'll see very quickly as we get into this that safety has a lot to do with how we think and how we see things. We're in over 60 countries, 23 languages, and over 6.5 million people have participated in some shape or form in our programs. So tons of experience, and that gives you a little bit of an idea of who we are. We have a number of very highly thought of people in the field of psychology who have contributed to our curriculum. You probably would have heard of Behaviour, Dr. Martin Seligman, Gary Latham, Tali Sharot, and David Matsumoto. I'll let Gary speak a little bit more about Dr. Tricia Stratford and Dr. Tali Sharot, because some of you may not have heard of them before. So Gary, over to you.
Thanks very much, Alex. For many years now, we've been working from the research of Bandura and Seligman, etc., and integrated that into the core curriculum and principles. But more recently, as brain imaging and various other technologies have come along, we're very interested in linking it with the neuroscience as well, as an evidence base of the impact it has that we can understand beliefs and expectations and things like optimism have on mindset. So Dr. Tali Sharot is really leading the world around redefining the purpose of memory and also the optimism bias. You may have come across her work. And Dr. Tricia Stafford from Sydney has been looking at executive thinking. And the more relaxed we are and the more we trust the subconscious processes, we've made the right inputs, that we move away from just being problem solvers to abundant thinkers with multiple, particularly in the areas of innovation and innovation thinking. So just a quick overview of those, and I'll refer a little more later on to those people. Thanks very much, Alex.
Thanks, Gary.
Leading on, give you a bit of a feel for the people that we work with currently and very recent clients. I'll let you read there. But areas, particularly where operational discipline is a very important concept, and mindset around operational discipline and attitude and belief around it is very important. So I'll let you read through those, but service and utilities companies, logistic and transport companies from Air New Zealand right through to Hong Kong, the USA, Defence Force, and industry regulators are increasingly interested in the way mindset works around standards. So it's quite a diverse client base, as you can see. Thanks, Alex. Just leading on, more and more people are asking now that when we look at safety, we should be really looking at a more holistic view of the individual. And so what we've adopted with some of the customization recently with clients is really taking a very holistic view, and the World Health Organization is a very simple definition, that health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being, and not merely the absence of a disease or infirmity. And they go on further to articulate a little more. Alex? When we set those beliefs around high levels of personal organisational health well-being, that every individual realises his or her own potential, that they can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and can make a contribution to his or her family and community. And that is also forms part of the state of well-being, the WHO definition. Thanks, Alex. So, I'd like to talk and involve you on, well, how do we actually go about and provide very simple tools for people to be able to balance their life and to self-regulate. So I'm going to take you through a very simple exercise, but it really relates back to the reticular activating system, which most people would know about, the RAS. Back to the previous slide, wouldn't mind, thanks Alex, to the RAS. I just wanted to talk a little bit about, it's not, the RAS function is not only to alert people to threats, but also things that you make important or of value. If you could move forward again, thanks Alex. Thank you. So what we make important also activates the RAS. And this little exercise actually reminds people of the fact that their personal safety is really embedded in a much larger fabric of life, and that's an important component. So what I'd like you to do, if you wouldn't mind, is just draw a circle as shown. So very quickly draw that circle, fairly large one if you could, and then draw 4 intersecting 2-headed arrows, making 8 meeting points at where the circle meets the arrows. So straight through the vertical, the horizontal, then the 1030, the sort of 430, etc., as shown. Okay. Well, first with the balanced life, there's a lot of research around now and large-scale studies looking over periods of time at the level of health and well-being and how balanced an individual's life is. And if people would like that research information, Alex, they can get in touch with us through SIA, and we're only too happy to provide that research base. Now, there's a list there you can see from personal, partner, family, physical, mental health, social, etc., right down the list. What I'd like to do is just select 7 areas of the list that are important to you right now, and I'll give you more time in a few minutes to the next point. Thanks, Alex. Just pause now while we'll take you back to the list to complete the exercise. So please write in personal safety where it's shown. Then select 7 of those areas and put them on 7 arrow points to come back around to personal safety. So it could be health, could be social, friends, career, job, and we'll give you an example. So this person, these were the important things in their life at that particular moment, and this is all about making safety personal. So I'll give you a few minutes to finish off that. Back to the list again. And I'll give you a moment to complete that. I hope everybody's had a chance to choose at least 7 around the before I got back to personal safety. Thanks, Alex. We move on. Now, the next part is really the important bit. Can you just hold there, Alex, before you move any further? We get people then to self-assess just how happy or fulfilled they are in that particular area of their life. The closer that they self-assess themselves with the centre of the circle, the less happy or less fulfilled they are. The more they're content or happy with that area of their life, they'll move that coordinate further out to the outside of the circle. So I'd like you to do, just move around the circle like this. And Alex, you can now demonstrate the slide. This person was not at all happy with their finances and retirement, and maybe like a lot of us, and whereas their career, their partner relationships, they were very happy. So if you wouldn't mind just doing a very quick self-assessment. Then when you've done that, just join the dots up, as shown, and then people then, and this is all kept very private, by the way, there's no talking about this across the table or any room, it's kept completely confidential. Then the people then have a base to begin to work on, well, how fulfilled am I in all of my life? How balanced is my life? And then we get them to do 2 further things, and I'll get you to write those in. The first is, write down on there 3 things you're grateful for, looking at your balance wheel, and what am I currently sacrificing? And again, I want to make the point that the more balanced life is, and we have some very large client case studies where they've applied this right across the organisation and have certainly had measurable results around the individual, but also sometimes adjusting the systems as well. Marcus says, can I see the options again? Could you go back, thanks Alex, very quickly to that one? Yes, there it is. Slide. Thanks Mark, can you see them all now? Okay. Okay, Alex, can we move on? Thank you. So we will refer back to this when we move into self-image. So if you move on to the next slide, thanks, Alex. But just put that aside, and if you wanted that list again, we can get that to you. So in any manual, what would happen, or any customised manual, this is the balance wheel people will be working from. And what they do then is they go through and look at if what they believe about the area of their life, what their habits and comfort zones are, how their self-talk is moving through, what it'll look like when they want to achieve the outcomes in that particular area. And you'll see that from a neuroscience point of view, the clearer the picture a person has of what they want their life, the more they'll move towards that particular picture. So thanks, Alex. To move on.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, look, it's not often, folks, that we do get the time to take stock of our lives, is it? And I don't know when last you've ever really given some thought to how balanced your life is, what's working for you, what isn't. I'd hazard a guess that none of you out there had a balance wheel that was perfectly round and perfectly at the extremities of the circle. It just doesn't happen that way, does it? Life is that way. Sometimes we're in flow, sometimes we are not in flow. So I hope you found that a very useful exercise just to take stock of where you're at, not only in terms of safety, but all other areas of your life. After all, well-being is all about balance. So thank you for that, Gary. Just to clarify a little bit about what we really mean about making safety personal and this belief-based approach. Now, we certainly, there's the whole concept of behavioral-based safety has been around for a long time and is obviously very valid. It's important to have rules, policies, procedures, But it's also very important that people get it at a personal level, that there's ownership and there's buy-in to acting and living safely, where people see the personal benefits. So this is where I think, we've taken, at the Pacific Institute, have taken this concept to its root cause, beneath behaviour. What is it in our belief system that causes us to want to behave safely? So as you'll see there, we're talking about an approach to safety that directly addresses the human factors that can act as both barriers and enablers to high-performance safety cultures. Now, we'll talk a little bit later about what these barriers are, but what these barriers can cause, and you'll probably agree with a lot of these, if you have barriers on a personal level, you'll have a lack of alignment, you'll have lapses in following agreed safety policies, procedures, and practices. They're just rules that people are tending to push back. You'll have inconsistent application of skills training back into operations. Very often you'll have some complacency, demotivation, disengagement, people just not really connected to the concept of safety. So a belief-based safety approach complements, that's very important, not replaces the behavior-based approaches by seeking greater personal commitments. It's about really making it deeply personal so that the person sees the benefit to themselves, their family, at a very personal, not purely organizational level. I hope that makes sense to you all. So what Gary and I do in our workshops is we physically have these two cards that you'll see, which we've marked card A and B. And the challenge is to put the cards side by side, so we think this will work fairly well as slides, and to challenge you with looking at those two slides and examining them and looking at which one you believe to be the bigger one. So welcome your responses. As you look at that, just type in your responses as to which you think is the bigger one. Is it the card on the left-hand side marked A, or is it the card on the right-hand side? Yeah, Mark, thank you. Mark believes it's B. We've got a few saying they're the same. Daryl says it's B. Some say A, B. We've got a good, lovely range of responses here. I see quite a lot of Bs. I see a few sames, equal. Yeah. Beautiful. Lovely, lovely, lovely. What's lovely is that, we've got lots of people registered for this and we're getting a pretty big range of responses. What I'll do in the next slide is we'll just swap exactly those same two cards the other way. And those of you that thought that the one on the right was the bigger one, isn't that interesting? The one on the right, which is now card A, still looks like the bigger one. And of course, you probably now realize that the cards are in fact the same size. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, David made a quick comment here. Serious? Question mark? Yes. This is all about assumptions, which we'll move into in a moment. And there's a reason behind this. There's a real neuroscience basis for perception and assumptions and the way we see things, which have significant implications for safety and any interaction. Thanks, Alex.
Yes, thanks. John says depends on how you look at it. Absolutely right, John. If you're comparing the edges, the right-hand edge of the card you're seeing marked B at the moment with the left-hand edge of card A, the mind is clearly going to come to the conclusion that the right-hand card is the bigger one. However, if you look at the left-hand edge of card B and then look at the left-hand edge of card A and then the inner edges of both cards, a different picture emerges. So John, good point. It depends on how you look at it. And that's life, isn't it? Life depends on how you look at it. I think it was Stephen Covey that said the world isn't as it is, it's the lens we're looking through. And that's so true. And this has huge implications for safety, doesn't it? I'm sure immediately some of you will relate to how this has implications. What might look safe to one person is not going to look safe to another. What might look like a good policy or procedure might not look to another. So, yeah, thank you for participating in that, and thanks for your responses. Just elaborating a bit on this assumptions and perception, I'll hand over to Gary.
Yes, let's take this one step further. Yes, Cheryl, depth can be a factor here as well, and that's very important from and we're going to take you in now into the AIMS room. Now, some people, we'll show you the video, some people may be very familiar with the AIMS room. A little bit of background, it was developed by an ophthalmologist called Adelbert Ames in around about 1934, and he is fascinated with depth of perception and what happens if you have a monocular view versus the stereo view that we get over through our lifetime. The brain is constantly learning to make assumptions about whether we can walk through a door, whether we can crawl under a table, whatever. So we develop this three-dimensional capacity in the brain. Now, and we're introducing this Dr. Ramachandran from the Department of Psychology from the University of California, and he talks about how what we assume is reality actually dictates what we see. And this has quite profound implications for not only what we look at in terms of the physical world, but also social interactions, learning, all sorts of things. And we'll get some of your responses once you've seen this short video. So I suppose Marie has a sound problem. If we could fix that up, but we're ready now to show the video. Thanks very much, Chona.
In interpreting the visual image, the brain has to resolve ambiguities. And in doing so, it uses all sorts of assumptions, built-in assumptions about the world. And because it uses all these assumptions, which we can investigate in the laboratory and discover, you can also trick the visual system. And this is what you call a visual illusion. This is the Ames room. It's a grotesquely deformed trapezoidal room. But the astonishing thing is, if you look inside the room looks completely normal. And the walls look parallel and everything seems fine. The reason is that the brain has a built-in assumption that the walls of rooms are usually parallel. This is something we've grown up with all our lives. And this assumption is so strong that it completely overrides the fact that people are actually changing sizes. Even though in the real world, obviously people don't change sizes like balloons, here you're willing to see that because the assumption of parallel walls is much stronger.
I think in the case of special effects, what's happened is that we've become increasingly sophisticated.
I'm sure, have I got sound back? Thanks, Chona. People can hear me? Thanks, Chona. Thanks, Chona. Yes, look, and somebody said, yes, it spins their head out. So we carry these assumptions to what we look at, and we're not even aware of them until something is grotesquely deformed as the Ames room comes, and by cutting out the three-dimensional view and just look at it in a monocular way, so the room feels normal, then our brain interprets that as normal, even though, and that's why we get those gross distortions in size of the two people and they change shape. So maybe we get a bit of feedback on if we do carry all sorts of assumptions, they determine how we see the world, what are the implications for safety from your perspective? And maybe we get some comments from in the text box here. Just before we go into that, Alex, just we did wait a few more comments from people. I'm not sure. Can people hear me? Say it again, please. Is that a miscommunication? Again, please. Am I being heard? Yes, rings plays a big part in morals, risk tolerance, yes. The question I'm asking is, if the brain makes assumptions about what we're seeing in the physical world, and it would we can make the same assumptions that every human interaction we observe, when we walk onto a site, we're going to actually make our brain will determine what we see at the end of the day. That's right, Philip A. It's because the peripheral vision was cut out with the monocular. Problem could occur with symbols used different and how they're normally used. Yes, that's right. Glenn, we can be deceived, misleading in regard to our apparent threats. Correct. There's lots of really good comments on the implications of the fact that the brain determines what we see based on past assumptions.
Yeah,
interpretation, Mark, absolutely right. Other centres actually influence what we see as well. All of these are really good comments, Alex, as we're moving through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Belief systems apply.
We know what we know, true, Brian, and people's priorities sometimes at the end of the day. Look, there's so many implications of understanding the way the mind works in terms of it's based on previous assumption, previous experience. So we provide tools that enable people not to be able to see the Ames room any differently, but in their everyday interaction, their beliefs around safety, we give them tools to actually challenge and question constantly those, and this is where teamwork becomes very important.
Yeah, Tatiana, you're onto a very good one there. Habits, we're going to speak a little bit about that. The nature of human beings, we have our own perspectives, experience. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, folks.
Owen's a very important one. Risk perception can vary, absolutely, based on past assumptions. So there are significant assumptions. So giving people the tools to constantly question, to understand they have perception issues, what they're looking at, and they really do need the other perspectives of other people and respect those other perceptions of people in order to fully understand the world they're in. So yeah, great. We could probably move on.
We'll move on. Thank you, folks. That's terrific. So I guess, you know, this really, you've answered to a large degree what the barriers are, you know, to our potential and to building a high-performance true safety culture. So on the left-hand side, you'll see that high-performance and true safety culture, we have a lot of potential to achieve that. On the right-hand side, what we actually achieve culturally in workplaces is compromise. And what are the barriers to achieving, you know, these a safety culture? And I think you really mentioned a lot of them already, so I'll put them all on. We've spoken about beliefs, and a couple of you mentioned about perception. Everyone has different perceptions. Expectations, yeah, what some people expect of a safe environment and what others expect could be very, very different. You know, you can go to some parts of the world where there just isn't the same safety is not taken as seriously as it's taken in other parts. So very different expectations. As was mentioned earlier, habits. Yeah, our habits have a huge determination on the degree to which we think safe and act safe. Our attitudes, we can talk about that for a long time. Yeah, Tatiana speaks there about poor leadership strategies, some good comments coming in there as we're talking. Values, obviously the organisational values, how things have always been done, how things we expect people to act around here has a big plays a big role. So all of these things that we've got on the screen here, including environment, could be limiting factors, but I'm sure you'll agree they can also be liberating factors. That if you have conducive and positive beliefs, expectations, habits, attitudes, values, and an environment which is conducive to building a safety culture, then it's a very different outcome, isn't it? But I suppose the key is, you know, how do you change these things? Can you change your beliefs? What do you think, folks? I'll put that out there. Can you change your beliefs? Any responses there? Can you think of a time where your beliefs might have changed as a person when you were young as opposed to now? Any thoughts there? Have our beliefs ever changed? Can they change? Any thoughts there? Have our beliefs ever changed? Can they change? Yes, yes. Having a positive influence, yes. I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Yes, with understanding and willingness.
Alex, can I just make a really one which affected an entire country, huge country, where a belief change. When Helen Keller learned to speak using her mouth, the way she actually learned that is quite a fascinating process, and there's wonderful footage, historical footage around on that. The belief up to that point was that people who were deaf, mute, and blind had a very limited potential Well, once Helen Keller had the simple systems and broke out of that through her ability to be able to speak and to be able to communicate, she went on becoming the first deaf, mute and disabled in those disabilities to graduate from a university in America and go and write a number of novels. So it actually started changing the entire nation's beliefs about the potential of people with disabilities. So I think that's an interesting case study, that one.
Thanks, Gary, and thanks for your comments. I'm sorry that some of you are having sound issues, but hopefully we're coming through okay now. So some really good comments. So I guess there's a big resounding yes, our beliefs can change. And I guess if you look at all those other things, can our expectations change? Can our habits change? Can our attitude, our values, our environment change? And I'm sure you'll all agree we are in control of all of those things, and it's really about how we think about them, isn't it? And change isn't always easy, but if we desire it, if we see the benefits, and we're committed, then we're capable of making tremendous changes. And it's only if we change the way we think that we can, in fact, folks, change the way if you look at the slide now, magically all of those words make up the way we behave. So that's, I guess, the difference between a belief-based approach, which goes down to the root cause of behavior, as opposed to just trying to change people's behaviors. Why do New Year's resolutions change? We're trying to change at the behavioral level rather than at the root cause belief level of them. Isn't that true? Wonderful, folks. I'll move us on. We're getting through things nicely, and I think we're well set for time. I hope the sound quality is better now. Tatiana is asking, can a smoker quit? Yes, they can. Question is, do they want to? Absolutely. Tatiana, a colleague of mine many years ago, when we went through a change process, wasn't successful with his goal to give up smoking. And when challenged by all of us as to why, he admitted that it's because he didn't want to give up smoking. His doctor did, his family did, his wife did, but he didn't. So central to motivation is the want to. Great point, Tatiana. I think that's critical. So that's why the key to making safety personal is to see personal benefit to yourself. And of course, then if you can see benefit to others, family, loved ones, colleagues, organization, it becomes even more compelling. But unless
Gary, we've just lost Alex on the line, so he just needs to dial back in.
Can I take over?
Yeah, please proceed while we connect Alex.
Okay, I'll take over. Sorry about that, people. Okay, so a few what ifs. What if we could build an internal mechanism? I'll let you read these as Alex goes down. He probably thinks his... can you hear me, Brian? Just type yes, please. Brian, yes? Oh, great. Okay, well, I'll take over from Alex. So, if you have a quick look at these what ifs, an internal mechanism that automatically leads to better decision making around personal and team safety, all individuals are self-direct, fully accountable, and we can develop positive, sustainable, positive attitudes and beliefs around safety to make them both personal and collective, and create a want-to rather than have-to safety culture. What sort of workplace would we have? And I'd like some reaction there. If those four qualities were deeply embedded inside an organisation, what sort of workplace would you have? Alex, he's moving on fairly quickly. You'd be out of a job, Roger. Well, that's maybe a good thing. Okay, just in terms of taking a holistic approach, I hope a safer one. Yes, sure. We've actually got some very longitudinal case studies with very large organisations, 18,000 plus, showing significant improvement in workplace attitude, balanced life, etc. Highly efficient. Some great comments coming through. Proactive, not reactive. Safe and more efficient. Yeah, they're wonderful things to read as you're going through, so thank you for that feedback. So a little more about balancing this holistic approach. So behaviour-based focus tends to focus on behaviours and outcomes, but based on knowledge, techniques, skills, they're very important components of any organisation that people can manage the handling of dangerous goods, work at heights, work in confined spaces, and we observe they can do it well. And most important, so our focus today is really about how do we complement that by developing culture and people, raising that awareness, accountability, aspiration, and then making safety personable through adopting their what we would call liberating rather than limiting beliefs, habits, attitudes, and values. Now, those beliefs, those liberating beliefs, are highly personal. We can't tell people what to believe, but we can certainly influence those, and hopefully people do have those positive, constructive beliefs and habits around safety that are going to serve them well, their teammates well, and in light of the balance wheel I took you through, that everything that's important in their life is going to benefit from that as well. Okay, so I'm not sure, Alex, if you can hear me, but we'll move on from that. So it's getting that balance between the behaviour-based focus and the belief-based focuses so that we get higher performance and safety outcomes. Okay, so this is a core principle of ours, that is, we really want change. We start with the individual, and that all meaningful and lasting change starts on the inside and works its way out, and it starts with the thought process. Those thought processes what build to construct beliefs. So that's it. And thanks very much for that, Marie, for that quote. Yes, just in response to Anne, Air New Zealand, Schneider National, Modern Terminals Hong Kong, as you probably saw in that client list, we have some of our case studies measuring the impact of this approach over 12, 14 years we have that we can share with information, and that would come through through SIA. If you want further information, please get in touch. We're very happy to provide those case studies for you. Matt, change the thinking will change the actions. Absolutely. Actions, and so when we look at what drives, behaviours are really an outcome. And when we look at what drives those behaviours, it's really attitudes and beliefs. And once we've got those embedded inside an organisation at the subconscious level, this is the way we do things, then the behaviours change, not just for a short period, but sustainably for as long as that particular standard remains. When the new standard comes in, people then able to have the resilience to change and move that new standard without resilience, without resistance. Okay, you back, Alex?
Yeah, I believe I dropped off there, which
so I've been flying blind here a little bit, but our technical people are looking after us. So I've just gone through all meaningful and lasting change starts on the inside and works its way out. So getting back to the, that's fine, Alex. Just this is my section I was going to finish off, so just bring those up. People asking what tools. Back, please, Alex, you're going too fast. Hang on, no, you start again. Okay, sample of the tools. People are asking, well, how do we do this? First of all, we start with the balanced life. Alex, is your system clicking forward?
It shows that it's all on, but not on your side. Yeah.
No, it's not. Can you go back? You've gone a little too far on the slides. So if you go back, now you come down here. Yes, please. And leave this page here for a few seconds, if you wouldn't mind. Okay. So if you bring all these tools up, thanks, Alex. Now, and I'll talk to them. So here's just a small range of tools we use. Balanced life is where we start. That is, we get people to self-assess with a view that self-regulation is going to be the best in a want-to frame of mind. And as Alex said, they can see the personal benefit. And we return constantly to the balance wheel and apply all of these concepts as they move through any program. We look at the nature of the belief systems and their self-efficacy, their capacity to make things happen. That's particularly the work of Bandura. We give them a little insight, or more than a little insight, exactly how the mind works. We had a bit of an experience of that today with the AIMS room and also the curve cards. A little bit about self-talk, self-image and performance, the way we talk to ourselves, understanding that process, and how when it's uplifting and futures-focused, and there's a neuroscience reason why it needs to be futures-focused, we change our self-image and our performance rises. And if our self-talk is negative, we go into a downward spiral. And as Seligman points out, it's the first precursor to depression. And the affirmation process is a very sound cognitive process which affirms very strong neural pathways around what you want, which are already there anyway from habits and attitudes from the people had all their lives. What we use the affirmation process to do is override those old neural pathways. So here's some self-image statements from frontline people who've been working in very dangerous occupations. This is a personal self-image statement. I'll give a bit of background to this statement. Because I care about my crew, I lead by example and make morning meetings meaningful and convey relevant and accurate information. This particular individual, working in a high-risk industry, was not at all happy about the level of engagement with his startups every day, and so he made an affirmation, and sitting behind this is a whole set of new behaviour changes and beliefs that stimulate his performance to that. As a team, this is another one, we've just got to block out the client. We are proud to be of an XX maintenance team that works safely, diligently, professionally, bringing years of knowledge and experience into our work. And the next line, Alex. We deliver reliability, security, and efficiency, and we make a difference through trust, innovation, collaboration, and personal accountability. So their self-image is very much rooted in the core values of the organisation, and this particular affirmation statement, you'll see there's an emotional dimension there, but the stronger the emotional, the stronger the neural pathway. It describes how they work, what their purpose is, and how they make a difference to safety. Okay, Alex, moving on.
Cheryl's asked a very good question there. The question Cheryl's asked is, where does mindfulness sit in all of this? Yeah, very much so, Cheryl. Mindfulness is a very big part of the approach we take. We talk about something called the pause button, which is where when something happens, if it's an adverse stimulus, you create space and distance between an event and your response to it. And
Alex, can you speak up, please? David's asking if you speak a little louder. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. I'm now speaking on a handset, so I hope that's a bit louder. So yeah, mindfulness is very much part of the approach, Cheryl. Thank you for that question. We'll move on a little bit because I'm just mindful now of time that we have left.
And are there peer-reviewed papers? Yes, there's abundance peer-reviewed papers, and again, we can provide those for you. If you go through SIA, we can refer you to those, particularly on well-being. And some of the big studies now are involving up to 70,000 people over 8 years. Resilience becomes a critical factor in that, and mindfulness sits right at the centre of these. Okay, Alex, over to you on some of the strategies.
Yep. Thank you. And incidentally, folks, yeah, some of you have asked, will you be able to get the slides? Yes, you will. So those will be made available to you. And apologies for some of the technical issues, but it's always a bit complicated when these things are set up across so many different workstations. So yeah, we're getting close to the end. So just getting back to leadership and culture, what are some of the key strategies that effective leaders can adopt to assist in driving safety as a personal concept? So any thoughts on that, folks? What could leaders do to drive this personal concept? What do you think? Just very broadly, give us some of your thoughts and your comments there. How do you get people buying in? How do you drive? Yeah, enthusiasm, engage, lovely, passion, yes. Very nice, Mark. Oh, lots coming in. Support and promote.
Yeah, the vision thing is very important. Empower. All those, yes, consultation by example.
Consultation. Talk about the benefits. Beautiful. Stakeholder buy-in. Lead by example. Absolutely. You're onto it. You're onto it. So know your workers. Very important. Don't assume. Don't assume you know what's on people's mind. Get to know where they're at, you know. One of the biggest dangers traps leaders fall into is to assume they know what people are thinking and how they're thinking and how they're feeling. An assumption is dangerous, as we already know from the video we saw earlier. Don't make us say, yeah, relationships. Talk to someone different every day. Starts from the top.
It's interesting, David, that some of the neuroscience now, in terms of building resilience, is consciously moving out of your comfort zones on a daily basis and doing it in a conscious way. There's a whole series of other trays that we can share with you with papers and so on, which are very simple but very powerful in terms of informing leadership and what good leadership looks like in that regard.
Communication, acknowledgement, reward.
Be a good follower as a good leader, exactly. Yes, all those.
So folks,
and we talk about formal and informal leadership. Those people have formal regulatory leadership responsibilities. Those who have informal are equally important. Thanks, Alex.
No problem. So if you look at this slide, folks, you'll probably agree that many safety performance issues come from a mindset, and that mindset is one that, well, my effort's not going to make any difference. And when that happens, that's not a good sign, is it? So what leaders want to do is to be aware of that and to adopt strategies that turn that mindset into one where people feel valued, valuable, and important. Everyone deserves to feel valued, valuable, and important. And if you can adopt strategies that turn the mindset into my effort makes a difference, that's the key. And how do you do that? Well, you engage people in the process of creating the rules rather than imposing the rules. You create a compelling vision for safety. You communicate and communicate often and consistently. You listen, you observe, you fine-tune. And as a lot of you have said, walk the talk. There we go. Tim has said there, it starts from the top. Walk the talk, provide feedback, reinforce the culture of safety through recognition and reward. I think you guys covered all of those things, so well done. Those are certainly important strategies that are going to make one hell of a big difference. Glenn, I love that. Transactional versus transformational leadership, which may not even be achieved via managers. Yeah, being transactional, you can't treat people as things, can you? You've got to treat them as human beings, and that means you want to be transformational in your approach. Lovely.
Alex, very good question from comment from Andrew. He said, well, when do people find time management to manage all this? When you focus only on what's important in your life and you do it on a daily basis and you create those strong neural sort of connections, a lot of superfluity, a lot of time wasting goes out the window. We find that people are capable enough to push those dots out on the circle simultaneously through the processes we put in place. So time management is not the issue. It's really focusing on what's important and devoting energy to what's important and cutting the rest out. Thanks.
Yeah, Andrew's got a good one there. Does scaring people with consequences work? Well, I think it's probably better to show people the positive consequences of appropriate behaviors. So use the carrot rather than the stick, as much as possible. So often, of course...
We call that not the right type of motivation. Okay.
No, absolutely. Excellent. Folks, we'll move on. There's some really good points and comments coming up there. Yeah, I'll let Gary speak to this one, wellbeing and safety.
Okay, Alex, you bring the slides down. Yeah, so basically what we do is we take a people and practice approach, which puts the accountability back onto the individual, not the formal accountability, but then taking on seeing that personal value and a want-to frame of mind. So alignment about wellbeing and safety through those shared beliefs, those shared expectations, shared habits, shared values, and then the environment and culture. Now, just a word about those is the last thing, because people all see the world differently, that is a huge strength. And we don't want people to lose that when they come onto the work site. But that's how we begin to see what's really there through that gender diversity, through ethnic diversity. All of those are so important that people don't lose that when they come onto the workplace. But when they do come onto into the workplace, people would expect that there would be some shared beliefs and expectations, habits, attitudes, and values around safety, and people are all aligned around those. But having those different perspectives is what makes, in our experience, and those big longitudinal case studies, what makes this so measurably impactful is the fact that people do have that diversity of view, and through that diversity, we actually can see the world in a probably more realistic way from everybody contributing to that. Okay?
Yeah,
John says, okay, Alex, we move on.
John's made a nice comment there. The higher the level of force, the greater the resistance. So true. You know, we do a lovely little exercise in our workshops where we get people to place their palms against one another and push against the other person. And what happens, of course, is when pushed, what's going to happen? People are going to push back. So you want to really overcome a resistance and make things a have to. The more you make it a want to, people see the value, the better. So, and
David's comment there, yes, I agree, David, it's very, very important that that diversity, there are those support and guide for those shared values.
Gary,
some examples of
take us through
shared beliefs. Alex, did you want to speak to this one?
Oh, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Wrapping up.
Just to some of our clients, we try to cut a lot of noise out around safety and just focus on 5 or 6 core beliefs through, and there is a process, again, a neuroscience process of how long it takes for an individual to absorb a message. We have that information. But these are some of the constructive shared beliefs of high-performance organisations. I'll let you read through those. Probably the most controversial one is always zero harm, and that one leads to good debate. But as long as it's top of mind and that sort of belief is promulgated and people talk and react to it, keeping things at top of mind is important. But these seem to be some of the shared beliefs and that it can drive a high-performance safety culture. So let people have a look at those for a few minutes. Okay. Thanks, Alex.
To those folks, I want to work where David works. He says, we have 23 different nationalities where I work and we have a ball. Sounds terrific. That sounds like a beautiful melting pot of cultures and different personalities. And of course, can it work? Of course it can work. You just need, you know, at the end of the day, we're all pretty similar as human beings. We're all motivated by very similar things. The more you travel to different parts of the world, the more you see that, you know, that we may speak different languages, we may have different religious beliefs or no beliefs, or at the end of the day, we're all human and we're motivated by very similar things. And of course, safety.
Oh, well done, David. 1,000 days LTI free. That's great. That's wonderful. Yep.
Excellent.
Okay, Alex.
Yes.
So we'll move on. And people
I think
understand, so they'll have some of this information with them. And a great smorgasbord lunch as well, Andrew. Absolutely. So any further questions? We've got a few minutes left, Alex. Any further questions about information people would like or observations that they'd like to share with people on the webinar? Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. We'll get those to you.
Comments are coming in. Lovely. Thank you.
And thank you, Brian, for your contribution. Yes, that's Philip. That's a very important message. Getting the message across. A message heard once is virtually forgotten, or only 60% retained after 40 minutes. But a message heard once every day in different contexts for 30 days is 98% retained. That has some big implications the way we structure our internal communications around safety. Cutting a lot of the noise out, very simple messages repeated over and over again through startup, through every available forum. So that's the way we approach. And thank you, David. Looking forward to the notes. Thank you. Thanks, Maria. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Roger, absolutely right. Repeat again. But looking and keeping it fresh, vital, and in different contexts every day. Sometimes it's bringing a safety share. Sometimes it's talking about the taking the family on a camping holiday and talking about safety. Other times it's around what's coming up, opening the RAS, the reticular activating system, to what we need to be mindful of in the coming months. Yep, get out and talk with people, budgeting, right. And Owen, it was a pleasure. And thank you for participating today. Okay.
I think we've pretty much reached the end then. There's still a few lovely comments and suggestions coming in.
Cheryl, that's innovation in New Zealand. There is a curriculum now on safety for all kids to do across New Zealand. We've been involved, one of our colleagues over there with that. and it was after the Pike River disaster when they rewrote their entire safety legislation based on the Australian sort of standard. But yeah, young people are very much engaged. Yeah. Can you get this PPP mailed to us? Yes, I think there's follow through, and Chona will talk about that you do get a copy of and access to this if you want to go back and listen to various things. And so they'll follow through. Okay. So if you've registered...
Any other questions, any other comments, folks? I see David Work is calling. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for your comments. Andrew, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, everybody. We're just about towards the end, I'd say.
Yeah, I think we are. I think just on behalf of the Pacific Institute, Gary and I would like to thank you very much for your time. Would have been lovely all being in one room, but this is a pretty good substitute. And thank you to SIA for the opportunity, and to Redback for their valuable support. There are always a few little technical issues, not always within Redback's control at all, but they do a great job at supporting us. So,
sure, we'd love to come back. So ask it, and we'll come back and have a chat.
Yeah,
and Ron, thank you for that. That's very positive feedback. Okay, thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Alex, thank you, and Gary, for your presentation, and thank you to everyone for attending the webinar. Now, please stay logged in to take our online survey, which you will be redirected to shortly. We thank you in advance for your feedback and wish you a pleasant afternoon.